What kind of person rents out someone else's home while they're risking their life overseas? I'll tell you who. HOA Karen. The self-appointed queen of our sleepy, suburban neighborhood. A woman whose heart seemed carved from the same stone as her perfectly manicured lawn. My name is Ethan Caldwell. And this is the story of how I came back from a year-long deployment to find my Hamimi sanctuary turned into a stranger's Airbnb. It's also the story of how my brothers in arms reminded me that home isn't just a place. It's a fight worth winning. I'd been stationed in a dusty corner of the world, where the sun scorched the earth and every day was a gamble between boredom and chaos. My little house in Willow Creek, with its creaky porch and chipped blue paint, was my mental anchor. I'd close my eyes during endless patrols and picture the oak tree in the backyard, its branches swaying in the breeze, or the way the kitchen smelled when I brewed coffee on lazy Sundays. It was mine, paid for with every cent of my enlistment bonus, a promise to myself that I'd have something to come back to. But while I was dodging IEDs, HOA Karen had other plans. HOA wasn't just the HOA president. She was a force of nature. A heavy-set woman with a voice that could curdle milk and a knack for bending rules to her will. She'd always had it out for me too many late-night barbecues. Too many oil stains on the driveway. When I deployed, I asked my neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, to keep an eye on the place. I thought I'd covered my bases. I was wrong. HOA, it turned out, had a cousin who needed a place to stay, and my empty house was too tempting. She'd forged documents, twisted HOA bylaws, and rented it out, pocketing the cash while I was half a world away. The betrayal stung worse than the desert heat. When I stepped off the plane, my boots still dusted with sand. I expected to collapse into my own bed. Instead, I found a stranger's family living in my house, couch cushions rearranged, my dad's old record player gone, and a kid's tricycle parked on my porch. My stomach churned as I knocked, only to be met by a confused tenant who showed me a lease with HOA's signature scrawled at the bottom. I called her, my voice shaking with rage, and she had the gall to claim it was for the community's benefit. She said my house looked abandoned and that she was protecting property values. I stood there, clutching my duffel bag, a soldier without a home. I could have gone to the cops, but Willow Creek's police were cozy with host bake them cookies at every community watch meeting. A lawyer would have taken months, and I didn't have months. I had my platoon, though. My squad, Jake, Maria, and Lucas had been through hell with me. They'd saved my life more times than I could count. And when I told them what HOA had done, their eyes blazed with the same fire I felt. We weren't just soldiers. We were family. And family doesn't let you fight alone. We started digging. Jake, who'd always been good with paperwork, scoured the HOA records I'd kept in a lockbox. Maria, our tech wizard, hacked into the neighborhood's online forum, where HOA bragged about her rental venture to other board members. Lucas, the quiet one with a law student brother, found a loophole in the HOA charter. No member could lease a property without the owner's consent, and forged documents were grounds for immediate action. The truth was clear: HOA hadn't just bent the rules. She'd shattered them for profit. But knowing the truth wasn't enough. We needed to confront her, and we needed to do it right. The twist came when Mr. Jenkins, my neighbor, confessed something that hit me like a sucker punch. He'd known about HOA's scheme for months, but stayed silent, afraid she'd target his own home next. He'd seen her cousin move in, seen the Airbnb listings pop up online, and said nothing. His guilt-ridden eyes met mine as he apologized, his hands trembling. I wanted to hate him, but I saw a man trapped by fear, just as I'd been trapped by war. It wasn't just HOA we were up against. It was a system that let people like her thrive on intimidation. That realization lit a fire in me just to take back my house, but to take back the neighborhood from her reign. We planned our move for the next HOA meeting, a monthly spectacle where HOA held court in the community center. My platoon and I walked in, still in our fatigues, our boots echoing on the linoleum floor. The room fell silent, all eyes on us. HOA sat at the front, her floral dress as loud as her personality, smirking like she'd already won. I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest, and laid out the evidence, the forged lease, the HOA charter violation, the screenshots of her forum posts. Gasps rippled through the room as neighbors realized the Queen of Willow Creek wasn't untouchable. HOA's face turned crimson, her voice rising to a screech as she called me a liar, a troublemaker, a disgrace to the community. She pounded the table, demanding we leave her meeting. That's when Jake stepped up, his voice calm but cutting, reading aloud the HOA bylaws she'd ignored. Maria projected the forum posts on the wall, each one damning her further. Lucas, with his quiet intensity, cited legal precedents that could land her in court for fraud. The room was a powder keg, and we'd just lit the fuse. The confrontation reached its peak when I walked to the front, holding a photo of my house me home taken the day I'd bought it. I told them about the nights I'd clung to that memory overseas, how it kept me sane when the world felt like it was collapsing. I told them how HOA had stolen that from me, not just a building, but a piece of my soul. My voice cracked, and I didn't care. I saw tears in Mr. Jenkins' eyes, saw neighbors shift uncomfortably in their seats. HOA tried to interrupt, but the crowd wasn't hers anymore. A woman in the back, Mrs. Carter, stood up and admitted she'd been bullied by HOA for years, forced to pay fines for her garden, threatened over her dog's barking. Others joined in, their voices rising, a chorus of resentment breaking free. HOA's empire began to crumble. She stammered, her usual venom replaced by desperation as she tried to deflect blame. But the evidence was ironclad, and the room's mood had shifted. A vote was called, something HOA couldn't stop, and the HOA board stripped her of her presidency on the spot. Her cousin was out of my house by morning, the lease voided under military authority, thanks to a regulation Lucas had uncovered that protected deployed soldiers' property rights. I walked back into my home that night, the familiar creak of the porch under my boots feeling like a victory hymn. The tricycle was gone, the cushions back where they belonged. My platoon stayed with me, cracking open beers in the backyard, the oak tree swaying above us like it had in my dreams. But winning back my house wasn't the end. HOA's downfall left a void in Willow Creek, and I realized it wasn't enough to just take back what was mine. The neighborhood had been under her thumb for too long, paralyzed by fear of her wrath. I saw myself in them, the soldier who'd almost lost everything because he didn't fight back sooner. So I ran for HOA president. Not because I wanted power, but because I wanted to show them what community could be. My platoon backed me, knocking on doors, sharing my story. Mr. Jenkins, redeemed by his honesty, became my biggest supporter. His guilt transformed into purpose. The election was a landslide. I stood in the community center again, this time not as a soldier, but as a neighbor, promising transparency, fairness, and a neighborhood where no one would feel bullied again. HOA didn't show up to move to a condo across town. Her reign a fading memory. As I spoke, I felt the weight of the past year lift, replaced by something stronger, hope. My platoon was there, clapping, their faces glowing with pride. We'd fought battles overseas, but this fight for home felt just as vital. Looking back, I think about what home really means. It's not just walls and a roof. It's the people who stand with you. The ones who remind you who you are when the world tries to take it away. HOA thought she could steal that from me. But she didn't count on my platoon. On the neighbors who found their voices. On the stubborn spark of justice that burns in us all. I'm back in my house now, brewing coffee in the kitchen. The oak tree still swaying outside. And every time I step onto that creaky porch, I'm reminded that some fights are worth everything.